And welcome to Let 'Em Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. We have a great show in store for you. I'd like to welcome back Danette Chavis, who's here. Thank you, Danette. Really good to see you. Danette is representing the National Alliance
National Action Against Police Brutality and Murder.
And murder, with the extra and murder there going on, right? And so, obviously, we've had, when you were on last, we were talking about the Eric Garner case. We've covered that extensively on Let Them Talk. But you know, many other events have occurred, and you know, we've been covering this forever. And it seems like it seems to many people, and this is unfortunate, that all these examples that are coming up are something new. But really, what's new is that we're seeing it, and we never used to really see these things before because people have cell phone cameras, they're photographing it. There's cameras everywhere, even the body cameras on the police. So we're beginning to see the horrors that African American people, men and women, particularly men, but men and women both, have to face in dealing with law enforcement every day, which is something that, you know, white Americans just don't know. They just have not, or if they know it, they're hiding from it, but they just don't experience it.
That's correct. It's something that has happened and continues. Despite cameras, despite special monitors, despite appointing special prosecutors, it continues to happen. And I'm glad that cameras have been ordered to be worn on officers, but it doesn't bring about police accountability. What we want, National Action Against Police Brutality and Murder, is police accountability. That's the demand. Cameras don't give you police accountability. All they give you is a front row seat to a murder.
Nobody's is really ever indicted even for these crimes. Nobody, you know, it's always just tossed off, you know, even though it's, you know, the Eric Garner case to me is a classic case. I mean, to see, and we played the video on this show, a human being dragged to the ground and choked to death in front of your eyes while the EMT people are doing nothing, and the people are standing around screaming and yelling and begging the police to stop, and they're using their armed force to protect the officer who's killing another human being right there on the street in front of us.
Well, you know, see, now it's not just Eric Garner. You can look at Ramarley Graham, those officers was filmed. Walter Scott, those officers was filmed. Philandro, that murder was filmed. Alton Sterling, that murder was filmed. And how many of them are in jail?
None. Zero.
See, and that's the point. You know, people, you know, in their fight for justice, they ask for certain things that they believe is going to bring about some police accountability, and it doesn't. Okay, these are methods and measures to be taken in the hopes that justice is given, but justice is not given in each and every case. You know, the demand needs to be that police be punished point blank. You know, the other things that are being requested, you know, people should do that if they feel that that's what needs to be done, because we're all at different levels in our understanding as far as what's going on with police here in the United States. And if you're at the place where you feel that the creation of an additional law will help, or you feel the creation of cameras being worn will help, or you feel that special monitors and prosecutors will help, then you should do that. But the evidence does show that those things have not brought any officer to justice.
So you're here in part to tell us about an event that's happening next month, or later this month?
Actually,
later
it's
this month?
This week, Saturday.
Oh, that's soon.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad we got you here. All right, great.
I'm
this
glad
Saturday
to.
is the
it's the 20th of August.
August 20th.
Yeah, our organization, NAAPB, that's the acronym for National Action Against Police Brutality. We are presenting a showcase entitled Voices for Justice in Hip Hop. It's a fundraiser for our organization in which we're going to be featuring hip-hop artists who use spoken word to speak truth to power, as well as address the issues that people of color are facing right in their community. It's a you could say an accumulation of people, the voices that are not being heard. Our organization is very keen on representing people who have not been heard in this fight for justice, and the hip-hop community, I think, more than anyone else, can succinctly address the issues that are occurring with people of color in this community. That's how it began, before it got perverted by the record industry and turned into gangster rap and thugging and pimping and things like that. The original creation, you know, of hip hop was about black people who were invisible to society, who had no voice. And there were individuals who began to speak and address these issues, and we were represented. Okay, we were would travel from near and far to hear those individuals who are, the old school rappers of our time. This generation that has come up and knows virtually nothing about that history has been seduced into a perversion of hip-hop for the sake of money. Okay, it pays very well. We have millionaires, people with no education, no anything, who have been turned into instant millionaires because they have gone out there and spoken a type of rap that tends to further the destruction of people of color, because our generation have no leaders, our generation have no true representatives on how to live in this world, and those rappers are set up and held up as those who should be followed. Okay, I will never forget when Little Kim came out and she dyed her hair purple, red, green. All the girls started dyeing their hair purple, red, and green. Okay, that's not knocking her. But that's to say that the power that hip-hop has to transform minds and to guide and lead the youth needs to be directed, redirected.
And so that's what's going to be occurring. So where is this event going to occur, and what
this
time?
This is going to occur
in
the Medicine Show Theater on 549 West 52nd Street in New York City, New York. Actually, it really started out as a simple showcase so that those voices could be heard, and we're fundraising. What results from it, if it could result from something that really took off and actually did, make people hear what these young people are saying, or made other people who are in the record industry rethink the music that's being put out there. And I'm gonna tell you something, I don't knock any hip-hop artist who's out there putting out that type of music, because if given a choice of living and dying, you're going to choose to live, okay? And that's the predicament that many artists have been put in, okay? That's their talent, that's their tool, that's their skill, and they use it. I can tell you, during this showcase and speaking to artists, because I told them that I want artists who will represent what's going on with policing, will address poverty, will speak truth to power. That's what I want in this showcase, okay?
Who's going to be performing?
There were,
go ahead.
There were artists who told me how they originally started out at creating this type of music, but because they literally couldn't get no attention, no interest, and now it's not just from the record industry itself, it's from the youth. The youth have been turned off from that type of music. They want to hear, shake something, drop it low, shoot them up, and all of this type of stuff like that. They don't want to hear anything that's going to feed their mind, and that's a disgrace. That needs to be changed.
Right. Do you think that's what's feeding? Because, there's this talk of, and to me it's fading more and more, because the talk about black-on-black violence all the time, that somehow, but when you see, things that happen in Chicago, high levels of killings and shootings and things like that.
Let me tell you something. You can't talk about black-on-black violence and blame the people in the communities who live up underneath it, and you're not addressing the record industry, who freely and liberally puts that music out there for the consumption of the same youths who's committing the crime. Okay, you can't just have an issue with those who's doing it and not have an issue with the record industry, who feeds this into the minds of the youth. Okay, how come you ain't stepping to them and addressing them about it?
I will. Next chance I get, which is probably never, because they never let me anywhere near their facilities. But fortunately, we do have these facilities here that we can make our case to the city of New York. Danette, Chavis, so so is there anything you'd like to add to that? All right, because I want to ask you a question.
Well, as far as the showcase, we have some really very talented artists whom I'm persuaded, if they were to change over and begin to start speaking the type of rap, gangster rap, and all that thuggery, they would be gone in a minute. They would be millionaires in a minute. But I'm convinced that precisely because they are speaking truth to power, and they are speaking revolution, and they are trying to reach the minds of the youth to think for themselves, that they are not getting those deals. Some of them have totally disavowed themselves and don't even want
They used to call that
contract.
Blacklisted. I guess we can call it whitelisted right now, right?
Well, I'll tell you, there are some artists that's so dedicated to this fight that they don't want a deal by a record company. And if they do get it, they want it on their own terms. I know individuals who have gone and launched their own distribution, their own studio in their house. But the bottom line is the bottom line, which is paper. Can you get paid? Will people support your music?
How do these companies, do they like actually tell people what to write? Do they tell them this is what you have to sing, this is what the message you have to have?
Listen, it's no secret. You know, it's been said long ago when hip-hop first became popular, there were hip-hop artists who told people they won't give me a deal unless I sing or rap gangster rap. Nobody listened to them. You know what they said? They said, stop hating, you making excuses because you can't get a deal, okay? But lo and behold, that's what it was. That is literally what it was. Hip-hop went across the United States without publicity, without media, without broadcasting, by the black youth of that time, strictly. Right. Word of mouth, by hearing, so-and-so's gonna be here, so-and-so's gonna be there, and they went, okay? White record industry saw dollar signs, came in, scooped it up, flipped it, and we have what we have today.
Right, I see what you're saying. So this event is trying to sort of recapture the spirit from the original days when people were doing it in the basements of the Bronx and Manhattan and Harlem, and it was reaching out, and it is the battle. Where was it first? Was the Bronx or was it Manhattan that it started? But it doesn't really matter. And it was always something that came out of the 60s. It came out of the anti-war movement. It came out of the civil rights movement. The early rappers considered themselves part of the youth movement of that time and a political movement, and that's what that era was about.
Well, this showcase seeks to highlight those rappers who are out there who are speaking positive things. They are speaking truth to power. They are encouraging people to stand up.
What is truth to power? What does truth to power mean in this context today?
Is when you expose the hypocrisy of a system, the United States of America, who offers liberty and justice. Those are the claims of liberty of justice for all, but you have thousands and thousands of people incarcerated in prison, more people in your jail cells than any other country combined. Okay, and when these people can be hoarded, carted off, locked up based on a simple accusation alone, and then held until they pay the ransom fee, which is bail, and you can't even substantiate the charges against them, something is wrong with that. Now, what I just said is that individuals can be accused by police of having committed a crime. They will be arrested. They will be brought before the judge. With no evidence concerning the crime, they will be held, okay, unless they can produce bail for their release. The focus and target of police is people of color. You're dealing with poor people from the beginning, the majority of which almost never have bail, so they have to stay in jail. When their court date comes and the prosecutor is supposed to submit evidence, he doesn't have any evidence because 9 times out of 10 the claims were false. When they do have evidence, it is presented immediately. The majority of the time on basic simple claims, they don't have it. The prosecutor will ask for more time to gather it and the judge will grant the time. That individual will go back to jail. Awaiting for the court date.
If they had the evidence, they would present it immediately. When they asked the judge for time to create the evidence, to get the evidence, what they're really saying is we don't have any evidence.
Listen, when an officer accuses you of a crime and you go to jail, he has to submit the charges to the prosecutor, to the district attorney. The district attorney is the one, he has to look at it and see if he can prove that case based on the evidence that you submit. Okay, you can't go with just a claim only. You're supposed to submit evidence. Okay, in some cases, evidence is not obtained. Okay, they'll give you a time frame in which to get it. But the majority of the time, the majority of people, like if you're in the street and you're accused of loitering or something simple, you're
selling loose cigarettes.
You know what? I was really hoping that the grand jury proceedings in that case be exposed publicly as was demanded, because this whole entire case hinged upon the claim that Eric Garner was selling loosies. Okay, that's the claim, that's the charges. Okay, and like I said, you're supposed to submit evidence. I guarantee you there's not a loosie in the evidence that has been collected by police.
Yet I was just reading in an editorial of in the New York Times recently, just a few days ago, that was purportedly sympathetic, right? Assumed in the writing of the editorial that he had actually been selling those loose cigarettes. In other words, the editorial of the New York Times said, well, it was terrible, police did this without proper, even if a person was selling loose cigarettes. And when I read that in the New York Times, and I hope other people out there read it as well, and immediately, oh, did they discover evidence of that since I didn't hear about or something?
They have lied coming and going concerning that case, concerning almost every case that you look at.
Why is it important for the New York Times to lie? The alleged gray lady, the alleged all the truth that's fit to print newspaper in New York.
If they want to
record.
That's a claim.
It's not the Post.
If they want to report all the truth that's fit to print, then they should have dug a little further into the claims that Eric Garner made, because he said that he had continually been harassed by Staten Island police and that it ends today. Okay, and they should have went back and looked at the lawsuit that Eric Garner filed against police, because they did a rectal cavity search of him in the middle of the street publicly. Okay, it's been 2 years since his murder. Okay, throughout the whole entire time that they're talking about this man's illegal activities selling loosies, how many news outlets have reported that this man was habitually harassed by police to the degree that he was held out in public and police went up in his rectum performing a cavity search looking for drugs?
The assumption in the New York Times and in all the media, but most disturbingly in the New York Times, because of their claim to be the newspaper of record, is that somehow the problem was that this person who kept bothering the police with his criminal activity selling loosies, the situation was handled wrong. Not that he was harassed or tortured or penalized for no reason.
This is why we need our own media, so that we can report our own story and be truthful in the telling. You know, Eric Garner, I want people to consider this. The reason that Ramsey Orta was out there in the first place filming that murder and happened to capture it is because of the habitual harassment and abuse by Staten Island police. Ramsey Orta himself had been repeatedly arrested and harassed by police, and it is because of that that Ramsey decided that he had had enough and he was going to film them. Lo and behold, what does he catch on video? His friend, Eric Garner. He had no idea that man was going to be killed right in front of his face, but he caught the video, okay? And for all the people involved in it, Ramsey is the only one who has been charged.
And he's in prison. He's doing 4 years in prison. Yes, that's hard time. Yes.
So I'm at the point where certain things I'm tired of discussing. I'm tired.
You can understand that.
I'm tired of combating what media is saying. I'm tired of the swerve that police puts on it. I think that by this time there should be sufficient amount of people who understand what it is and know what it is and is ready to deal with it. Okay, it's been a long time in coming for people to come up to the revelation of the reality that's occurring here in the United States. Okay, but what's going on with police requires a nationwide action. Okay, there's not going to be a remedy, there's not going to be a change, there's not going to be justice by the individual measures that have been taken or the scattered efforts of people. We all need to come together on one accord and unite and demand that police be held accountable.
Yes. Oh, let me just take this. Thank you. That's all right. That's great. Your hands are beautiful as they are. We don't need anything to help them. Okay, Danette Chavis, thank you for coming and telling us about this. Now, let's remind folks why we're here. There's an event coming up August 20th, this Saturday. What time, what place, what's it about? Tell us about it.
549 West 52nd Street, the Medicine Show Theater. It's in New York City on 52nd Street, and it's called Voices for Justice in Hip Hop.
And what time does it begin?
It begins at 7 p.m. sharp, and do arrive early.
There's going to be lots of acts. Can you say the names of any of the groups that are going to be there?
We have Spirit Child, who, by the way, does a lot of work with the youth here, travels outside of the United States as far as Germany. We have Nene Ali, who also does a lot of work with the youth. We have Queen Blizzy, a.k.a. Ty Black, who's out in the front lines dealing with the issue of police brutality and murder. Sure. All of these people are artists, okay? And they're also, their life consists of speaking truth to power and trying to reach our people, you know, to come away from the destruction that's set out there to catch them.
Right, great, and so that's great, and so we urge folks to come and to be at this event and to become part of this, because we need people to really stop being observers and to get actually involved. We've seen being an observer really isn't enough, because people photograph, film these events. It seems like we have a collection. You can have film of one after another that would fill a Hollywood movie house, yet nobody is punished for this. There's no, the police just over and over again seem to just walk free, no matter how many people are killed. And it's always, they talk about like the rationale for each shooting, each killing, each death, as if each one could be separated from this reality of people being shot down and killed in the streets of New York. What's going on here?
No one in the United States today has more justification to commit murder than the black man. He is the #1 target across the United States, specifically by law enforcement across the United States. So as far as justifications that the officers give, you were in fear of your life, although you had a weapon. You imagined that you saw a gun when there was none. The only legitimate person who can and should be allowed to make those claims is people of color across the United States, because they are murdered by police, far more than police have been murdered by individuals.
Would you say this is a continuation of the 1930s, lynching epidemic that spread through America, where people are saying what the police are doing in cities across them is a modern-day lynching? It's really, we thought it was over. Strange Fruit, was the song. There was campaigns. Another man was lynched today. Now we have to have banners that say another black man was killed today by police today.
In my estimation, it's worse than the lynchings. It's worse than the killings that went on during the 60s. It's worse because during that time, we had something to reach for to give us hope, which was changes in laws. Okay, now changes have been made. Laws are in place. So what do you do now? You keep on making new laws and making new laws. The issue is not a lack of laws to hold people accountable. The issue is the unwillingness to hold them accountable under the existing laws that are already in place. They have made people think that there's no laws available for them. They're unable to do anything against police. That's not true. Murder is a crime in the United States and everywhere you go. In every state across America, murder is a crime. Okay, your reasons for your inability to prosecute a police who murdered an unarmed individual who posed no threat against him is bull. Plain and simple, and we need to stop going for it. Okay, and those individuals who don't have the authority or the wherewithal to prosecute underneath the law, then you're in the wrong field, because that's your job description.
What do you think of the recent demonization of the Black Lives Movement and this claim of that somehow racist movement should be like all lives matter or blue lives matter and this kind of nonsense?
First of all, I resent the fact that every time somebody says Black Lives Matter, somebody hollers back, no, all lives matter. I think it's hysterical and it's usually a bunch of white people. Some black people say it too, but it's a lot of white people that holler back and say, no, all lives matter. It's hysterical to me because since black people have been in this country, we have been fighting tooth and nail to be included into the United States. And white folks that says, no, do your own. You never wanted to share the cookies. You never wanted to share the wealth. Okay, and now when a group of black people set out for self-determination to do for self and declare, yes, our lives matter, you say, no, all lives matter. Okay, the truth is, black lives have mattered since the inception of this country, because this country was built on the backs and the blood and the sweat and tears of black lives. Okay, but white folks, you wasn't trying to include yourself in that slavery when it existed in order to build the wealth of this country. So what you talking about now? That's where I'm at. And the other issue with Black Lives Matters that I have is that in so many instances, organizations start out and they be on point and they on the pulse of the issue of the time, okay? And they gain the attention and exposure that's needed, and then here they come. These agents, these undercover individuals who all of a sudden you started out, asking for red apples, and now you're over here asking for peaches. Okay, I thought you was out there for red apples. How come you all of a sudden now you're asking for peaches? What happened? You know, every organization, including ours, needs financing, but financing and the backing that's given to many of these organizations comes with a price tag that seemingly requires you to redirect your focus elsewhere, okay, instead of what you originally start out in a fight for.
And a fight it is. Danette Chavis, we got a couple more minutes. I want to remind folks who might have just tuned in that this is about this event, August 20th. It's a hip-hop event that's happening on 52nd Street, right? At
52nd Street.
52nd Street at the...
Between 10th and 11th at the Medicine Show Theater.
The Medicine Show Theater,
yes.
Okay. And folks, it's 7 p.m. and people should get there early. And a number of hip-hop stars are going to be there with a progressive, populist message who are going to be talking to the people. Danette, in the last minute or two, what about this upcoming presidential election? Do you think it matters who gets elected? And what do you think of this whole Trump insanity that's going on?
You ain't got enough time for that question to be answered.
I know, in a minute, it ain't enough, I know.
I'll say
just
this.
Touch on it.
I'll say this, that there are other candidates, okay, that are not being highlighted or given the media coverage, so everybody is very upset and resentful, and rightfully so, about just Trump and Clinton. But there is another candidate, Jill Stein, you know, which many people liken to be similar to Bernie Sanders, who had a strong showing, and she has not been given a lot of media play. But tomorrow, there's going to be a town hall meeting at CNN. Is going to allow that for questions to be asked by people so that people can familiarize themselves with her and what she stands for. And I hope that people take advantage of that and look at the other candidates
and
that
try and find
there.
a third party. So you're saying we need other parties. We need some other. But the Democrats and Republicans have both equally failed people of color and all people who seek and love justice in America.
You know what? In communities of color, they have gangs. Okay, they have the Crips and they have the Bloods. In politics, you have the Republicans and you have the Democrats. Now you're asking people to choose.
And it's pretty much 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, as they say in the vernacular.
Well.
All right. Thank you, Danette Chavis, Thank you, Danette Chavis, for joining us on Let Them Talk. You're always welcome to come back and talk about events, and we'll be there next Saturday on the 20th. And thanks very much for joining us, and we'll be seeing you next week on Let Them Talk.
Thank you.